Hey everybody, this is the Sliders Review, and I'm here today to talk to you about how I'm fed up with Hollywood elite, or more specifically, old Hollywood elite, trying to get rid of comic book live action movies. Because, I put out a video yesterday about Jodie Foster and the comments she made, and a while back I made one about Martin Scorsese. And you know what? It's really it's really just frustrating that these people who are much older and have a different taste of what Hollywood should be about or what movies should be about, trying to literally ruin comic book movies only because they do not like them. They have a personal dislike to them, and for whatever reason, they really don't give a true 100% specific reason as to why they really hate comic book movies. They're vague with their answers, and they try to formulate their answers to where it's almost like they're trying to brainwash others into joining, like a cult or something like that. Now, I'm not saying they're cultists or nothing like that, but I'm saying, the way they phrase their statements and stuff, they're trying to, ring in other people to get that ball rolling so they can form like this type of like mob cult type thing and take down something they don't like. And it's working because now, pretty much for whatever reason, now you have all these random celebrities, whether they're writers, directors, producers, or like the actual stars themselves, chiming in and commenting on comic book movies, which is the most random thing ever. And it's some of the biggest names ever. And like some of the biggest names is, of course, Martin Scorsese and Christopher Nolan, even to some degree, like Quentin Tarantino chimed in, and now is Jodie Foster. And it's kind of like, why? What is their problem with trying to take away something people enjoy? And more importantly, why take away something I enjoy? That pisses me off right there. And as you know, as human beings, we don't like it when people try to meddle into something and try to take away something we enjoy. It's very irritating and stuff like that. And it's like these movies aren't hurting them, or maybe it is, and they just don't want to say it. Because, in all honesty, it truly feels like, because, for them, I truly believe it feels like they think they're being replaced. They acting like these comic book movies are like, I don't know, diluting the minds of like young people, and that they're trying to teach them things that they don't want to be taught, or they don't want things to be taught to other people, and like, they're being replaced. Does that sound familiar to you? It sounds like all those crazy YouTube people, those anti-woke people trying to brainwash people and trying to stop diversity. And that's the same thing what Martin Scorsese and Jodie Foster and all these others are trying to do to comic book movies. And there's something they don't like. It's something they find that is inferior. It's something that irritates them. And they're trying to get others to like join their cause because they feel like it's not doing something for them. Jodie Foster literally stated that comic book movies do not change her life. She didn't really go into much specifics as to what exactly she meant by that. And it's like, does it not change her life like physically, philosophically? Does it not change her life financially? Does it not help her make her grow as a person? Like, what exactly does she mean by that? You know what I'm saying? And comic books have always come under like fire, even in the past before they've been started in making movies or even animated series. Stan Lee said himself that he couldn't even tell people what he did for a living, because when he went to these big, elite parties and stuff like that, people dressed up in their fancy clothes, and they would ask him, what do you do for a living? He never said comic books, because he said if he did, they would flat out laugh at him in his face, because comic books was considered something for kids. And nobody took that seriously back in the day. And so, but as he got older, oh yeah, man, that man like told everybody what he did for a living, because comic books became more acceptable, as like the 90s and the 2000s rolled around. And Stan Lee, even though, yeah, he produced pretty much every Marvel movie that came out, and every Marvel television show that came out and stuff. And yeah, he cameoed pretty much in so many of the movies, television shows, and animations and stuff. It's like he became almost like, the godfather of like comic books and everything. Everybody just appreciated him and worshiped him and all this other stuff. And you know what? He's not a perfect man. He's like the Bob Kane to Jack Kirby, Bill Finger, for the most part. Not to the full degree what Bob Kane did, but if you do your history and your research, then you'll realize what I'm saying. You know what I'm saying? So he's not like, he ain't perfect. He has his flaws, but he was still a good man. And he was worshipped. And I mean, just worshipped when all these movies came out and stuff like that. And, these Hollywood elite people, they just can't see that. They can't see the greatness that, people like Stan Lee, Bill Finger, and like Bob Kane and Jack Kirby and all these others have like brought to people of all ages. The great thing about like comic books, it really doesn't matter how old you are. You start off as a kid and you continue as you're an adult. But when it comes to these live action adaptations and everything, a lot of them can be more like family films. You can take your family literally to the movies and enjoy yourself. You can't say the same thing about Oppenheimer, because that deals in a whole lot of death and destruction and like the atomic bomb. And but when you take your kids to see a movie like, I don't know, Spider-Man, Avengers, something like that. Yeah, there's violence and stuff like that. But, comic books are technically for kids and teenagers, but of course adults love it too. So you can literally take the entire family to go watch it. And why is that a bad thing? Like why? Why is that a bad thing? You can't do that with so many other movies and stuff. You can't do that with an action thriller. You can't do that with a horror movie. You can't do that with a spy movie. You can't do that with a gangster movie. So it's like, what is the big deal when it comes to that of comic book movies? And comic book movies have changed people's lives. Like they really have. When it comes to those stars, it changes their lives financially. Robert Downey Jr. is one of the biggest, richest stars, and it's all because of Iron Man. All that stuff he did in the past didn't accumulate to all the millions he is currently making for that of the Avengers movies, because he has something in his contract that says if he stars in a movie that has the title Avengers in it, he gets paid a buttload of money and merch and residuals, anything. So anytime an Avenger movie comes on broadcast TV, he's getting a huge chunk of it. Anytime the merch comes out, he's getting a big chunk of it. Anytime you watch it on streaming, he's getting a big chunk of it. And to say something doesn't change a person's life, well, I call BS on that. And it really reminds you Whenever you know how you hear about like kids from the 1950s, teenagers, and how rebellious they are, and it's because old people kept sticking their finger into everything they did, and wouldn't let them like live their life, and so they rebelled in like a very different way than the way teenagers rebel now. It reminds me of like that. It reminds, because it's mostly these older people chiming in about comic book movies, and they're trying, like really old people, and they're trying to take it away from the younger and the slightly younger and the older, but not too old people and stuff. And back in the day, they used to say comic books used to like brainwash people. It used to uneducate people. It was tarnishing the minds of the youth. Well, when you see a movie like Thor, Love, and Thunder, yeah, you get that impression. And that is the problem with a lot of these current like live adaptations of comic books. They're getting overly too silly and overly too stupid. And yeah, like, don't get me wrong, comic book movies aren't perfect. They're definitely not perfect right now. There is a stumble they have come across, and they're trying to fix it. At least they realize they're trying to fix it. And I don't mind if a person complains about like what's going on with comic book movies. Heck, I do it myself. Because if you don't complain, you don't get it fixed. Look at new Star Trek. People really hated Star Trek Picard and Star Trek Discovery. And what happened? Well, it divided the fandom. So you had some people who will just like watch it for whatever reason, all because they're like fanboys and fangirls and say the greatest stuff about it. But then you had the other people who complained about it. And when enough people complained about it, that's when the people in their business suits decided, yo, we got to change this. We got to fix this. And when they fixed it, it became a bit more enjoyable, like Picard season 3. And whether people want to admit it or not, Discovery season 4 was a whole lot better than what 1 and 2 was. 3, somewhat to some degree, was pretty good, but it came out a little stupid as well. But 4 was pretty good, and 4 tried to be as Star Trek as it was. It still had new Trek elements in it, just like for Picard, but they added the older stuff in it too to please the other fans who this was like meant for and stuff. So I don't mind if like, people like complain, because right now comic book movies aren't like, they're not all perfect. Like take like the Arrowverse CW stuff. If you ain't got the budget, if you have a creator that kind of goes off the rails and doesn't come up with a good story, then people, it's gonna suck and people are gonna complain. And same thing what happened to Gotham on Fox. Same thing what happened to like, these other comic book shows like Titans. Titans is a mess. They're trying too hard to be like other like comic book properties. They tried to be like the Snyderverse in the first, with all the like brutality and grittiness. Then they tried to be more sillier with the comic book stuff, and they tried to blend all that stuff together, and it wasn't working because they never tried to produce their own legit project and stuff. That is why people enjoy Doom Patrol a whole lot more. But then Doom Patrol just got a little overly too silly. And, people enjoy like The Boys and everything. The Boys is really fun and entertaining and stuff. And it really made you look and, is being a superhero really all that great? Especially if you have these superpowers and they come out when you don't want them to come out, like saying intercourse and stuff, and you happen to blow somebody up or laser their like body part off or something like that. Like that would totally suck. And it really makes you think. Like, it's weird. The Boys is basically South Park, but with superheroes. And as gross and grotesque and like rude it could be, it made you really, really, really think about like, is it great to be a superhero or is it not? Because the superheroes in that universe is all scammers and frauds and stuff like that. And they legitimately like hurt people and stuff. But, like I said before, these elite people, they can complain all they want. That's fine. I don't care. But it's when they try to take it away that bugs the crap out of me. I mean, they don't understand why people love these things, and we don't understand why they hate them, because they don't really give like full answers as to why they like literally hate the thing. They give like half-baked answers and stuff, and they don't want to explain anymore because they know that it's probably going to be something very, very hateful, or like they don't really have an answer, because their biggest thing is about being replaced. You look at Martin Scorsese, you look at Christopher Nolan, you look at like Quentin Tarantino, and you look at Jodie Foster, and you see the type of projects they're involved in, and none of, well, except for Quentin, Quentin's probably the closest thing you'll have to a comic book movie, but not really. And I'm always thinking about Kill Bill, but that's more like anime or whatever. And so like, the movies they make don't look nothing like comic book movies. They don't really send the same message like comic book movies, or do they? But they don't really look at, because comic book movies are very message heavy. And I'm not just talking about like diversity stuff. I'm talking about like real world implications. You look at a movie like Captain America, the Winter Soldier, or Captain America Civil War, and it's very, very, like, Winter Soldier is very political, and like, even like, Civil War was somewhat political too and stuff like that. And it's no different than when you watch, like, say, a Disney movie and stuff. Like Aladdin is basically Robin Hood, you know what I'm saying? When you watch, like, not the movie, I'm talking about like the television show and stuff. He's basically Robin Hood. He steals from the rich and he gives to the poor, and he tries to rescue and save people and stuff. And it's like, the problem is with those older, like, elite, like, Hollywood people, is that they only want to see what they like on screen. What is not always about them, because they don't rule Hollywood and stuff. I mean, take me for example. When I was growing up, I watched a lot of cartoon stuff. Like, whether it was like a comedy cartoon like Looney Tunes, or a superhero thing like X-Men. And like around, when I started getting much older, like a teenager close to an adult, Fox Kids started to reshape themselves into like Fox Box and everything. And when they did, I noticed something. There was nothing but anime on Fox Box for the most part. I didn't see the cartoons I grew up with, and it was annoying and it was frustrating. And you know what I did? I turned the channel. I didn't try to ruin it for anybody else. I didn't try to take it away from nobody. I just moved on and found something else to watch. And like, that is what you do. You don't try to take away something that brings people joy. Now, yes, I do like anime. I don't like anime as much as some people, like, who are like obsessed with it and everything. But like, I do enjoy some of the stuff that I've seen in like the past. And it's like, I understand the value and the funness of it all. 'Cause it's just like Jodie Foster and Christopher Nolan and Martin and stuff. They do like some comic book movies, but then it's only the ones they like. Everything else they want to get rid of. I'm not like that. I like some animes. There are others I don't. And I still let people enjoy those. Heck, I was pissed when Superman and the new, what was that called? Superman the Animated Series and the New Adventures of Batman. Those both got canceled because Pokemon dominated. And did that cause me to like hate Pokemon? No, I had a disdain towards it and everything. And I've never watched it. I watched Digimon instead. But like, I didn't hate it, and I didn't want it taken off the air because, there are people who like love it and stuff like that. Plus, I just didn't care because I just went to go watch something else. Like, it hurts when your favorite project get canceled, but then eventually in life, you're going to move on. And then what happened? They created Justice League and everything. And so I still had Batman and Superman, just in a different, like, show. And that's what you do. You move on. Like, take those like Twilight YA type movies. I don't watch that crap. I've only seen one Twilight movie, and that was that. I didn't like it, and I moved on. But there are a group of people that love those movies, and Hollywood learned that, and they started making more. And I'm just like, whatever. I moved on. I let those people have their movies and stuff. I like Harry Potter. I don't like all the sequels, like that Fantastic Beast stuff. And then because of Harry Potter, what happened? You had all these novels, these kid novels, these fantasy kid novels take shape in Hollywood. It was a phase. And did I watch any of those? No. I watched the Narnia stuff, but that was about it. But, I didn't watch those movies. I let Hollywood do its thing. I let people have their enjoyment. That's the thing. And then when it fizzled out, it fizzled out. And then, people moved on. And that's the problem with these Hollywood elites. They don't want nobody to have what makes them happy because it doesn't make them happy and stuff. They don't know how, if they want to watch their type of movies, they need to go watch their type of movies. If they want their type of movies to be in Hollywood, then they need to make their type of movies. And if they bomb, they bomb. If they be a success, they be a success. But when they bomb, what happens? They want to blame comic book movies, because comic book what's in my mouth? Comic book movies are the new it thing in Hollywood right now. They're the most bankable thing. So when their movie don't do well, their romance comedy, their sci-fi movie, their gangster movie, their big time drama, their thriller, their horror movie, whatever, they blame comic books because those are the ones that are becoming box office draws and everything. And all that tells me is that whoever made those movies ain't cooking in the kitchen very well and stuff. They're apparently not right, because that's the one of the problem with a lot of stuff out today. It don't even matter if it's comic books or what. People aren't writing stuff very good no more. People aren't directing very good. People aren't acting very well. So when that happens, nobody's gonna want to see your movie. And to blame comic books on that is BS. You also got to remember about digital. Everything hits digital within about about 4 week to about a 6 week time period and stuff. But for the most part, it happens about 2 weeks or so after the movie comes out. Well, after it does this 2 week thing in the box office. After those 2 weeks, about another 2 weeks, that's like 4 total, and then it hits digital. Why is somebody gonna want to go to the movie theaters if they can just sit home? See, people like Martin Scorsese and Christopher Nolan are worried people aren't gonna go to movie theaters no more, and they're afraid those things are going to go away. So what are they doing? They're blaming comic book movies for that. It's not comic book movies, it's streaming in general. You want to blame somebody, you blame Netflix, because even though Hulu was came out before Netflix in terms of streaming, it was Netflix that started charging money for subscriptions, because Hulu used to be free. People don't realize that. You could watch crap on Hulu for free back in the day. But Netflix came around, changed the ball game, and now everybody's charging. And now everybody's overcharging. And now movies are getting placed on these streaming sites. So of course, why in the world are you gonna want to go to the movie theaters, have to deal with irritating people or COVID, and you can just sit at your home and do whatever you want. And you know what I'm saying? And that's right there is what's killing cinema. That's right there is what's really killing movies and stuff. Because now all these movies back in the day, whether they were a hit or they was a flop, now they're being made into streaming television shows where they can have multiple episodes and multiple seasons to really hash out their story instead of trying to cram it in for a period of 2 hours or so. And that is what's ruining movies, is streaming and stuff. And now these streaming shows are getting huge budgets where they can really dish out some really good VFX and stuff. And they're doing it a whole lot better than what these movies are doing. Well, not so much in terms of CGI, sometimes, but mostly just storytelling and stuff. like His Dark Material. I enjoyed that so much more TV wise than I did the actual movie. Same thing with what's the thing called? Mortal Instrument Shadow Hunters. I enjoyed the television show so much more than the movie. Because the problem with the movies is that, yeah, sure, the TV show for the most part nowadays, they're going to adapt something fully to that of the source material. They know people really love source material. They want to be faithful. Problem with those movies aren't really faithful. They aren't that keen to source material because they want to do their own thing. And that is a huge problem and stuff. Like take Batman Returns. It altered that of Catwoman and the Penguin in their origin story because Tim Burton wanted to tell a Tim Burton story. And so that's why people like Martin Scorsese and Christopher Nolan, all these the directors, they get pissed because they want to tell their kind of stories when they're adapting something, but they can't always do that because if they say Christopher Nolan Batman thing, he has to adhere to that as source material, but doesn't always want to. That's one reason why Christopher Nolan went the more realistic route. He didn't want to have a silly, goofy, superhero movie. But sometimes you need that fun. I like Batman and his realism. I like Christopher Nolan Batman movies, but it was missing the fun element out of those movies. And that's really all it's time's up to. They just can't do what they want to do, and they want to do it. And they want to tell it for however long they want to tell it. Movies do not need to be 3 to 4 hours. If you can't tell your story in 90 minutes, don't make it. And Christopher Nolan and Martin Scorsese are trying to go bigger, longer now, and it's not really paying off. The one Martin just came out with was 3 hours or something, and it bombed at the box office. Christopher Nolan's Oppenheimer, one of the reasons why that did so well at the box office is because of Barbie. Those two were competing with one another. And so because of that competition, people will see one movie, they'll go see the other one, and some got to go see both. And Oppenheimer and Barbie proves that you don't have to be a comic book movie to be successful in Hollywood. Those two dominated and stuff. One's based off a kid's toy, and the other one is about a man who blew up like a country and stuff like that to try to help win a war and everything. And, those wasn't comic book movies, but they still did well. So when they say, their movies don't do well, it's because you ain't cooking very well. And so but those movies prove that you can, and you can outdo a comic book movie. See, they don't go after video game movies because video game movies don't do well. So they're not threatened by video game movies, but they're threatened by the comic book movies and stuff. And I've said this before twice now, and I'm gonna say it again. I'm gonna ride this train, the comic book live action adaptation, for however long this phase lasts, because it's just a movie phase. Once Hollywood's done with comic book movies, they're gonna move on to whatever makes them money more. So I'm gonna ride it, good or bad. I'm gonna ride it, and because you don't see the thing about these Hollywood elites, they're not understanding how us nerdy people feel. We are getting to see our heroes come to life for the first time. It's like a holy miracle or something like that. It's like Christmas came early, and they can't get it through their thick heads of why this makes us happy. They don't. They don't understand what we went through growing up as kids and teenagers. It's kind of like people who are fans of Power Rangers. You tell somebody you're a fan of Power Rangers and they make fun of you because Power Rangers tends to go off the rails and becomes overly too silly. And it's been looked at like a kid's show. So nobody takes it serious and nobody takes their actors serious. That's why most of their actors who can actually act can't get no projects beyond that. It's the same thing with Disney Channel and Nickelodeon. A lot of those stars can't find work because when somebody sees, Disney Channel or like Nickelodeon on their resume, they don't get hired for nothing because people see it as like little kiddie stuff and they get made fun of that. But we know, us nerdy people, we know what that feels like. We know what it felt like when we saw our comic book heroes come to life and with their amazing suits and their CGI powers and the merch that came after it. If it wasn't for the MCU, we wouldn't be having like Thanos, like Infinity Gauntlet. We wouldn't be having Iron Man's helmet. We wouldn't have Cap's shield. We wouldn't have Thor's hammer. We wouldn't have Wolverine claws, real claws made out of real steel. We would not have that if it wasn't for the live action movies doing well. We get to experience all that like awesomeness that we saw in like comics or cartoons, and we get to hold it in our hands in terms of merch, and not cheap like plasticky merch. I'm talking about the good stuff, like the good plastic or the good metal. And because I still remember what it was like when I saw Spider-Man on the big screen. Spider-Man is my favorite superhero. I had the luxury of reading his comics growing up before I gave up on like reading comics because the place I used to buy comics from growing up, went out of business and I wasn't going to go halfway across town. So I'm like, whatever. And my sperm donor, from one of the few memories I have of him is him taking me somewhere, hanging out, which is something he never did. And he bought me a soda and he gave me a VHS tape of an older Spider-Man cartoon from like the 60s, 70s, or 80s, something like that. So I was in like the 80s when this happened. And I watched that. And this is the first time I ever experienced Spider-Man. And I thought he was like the coolest thing ever. So then I started buying like his comics and stuff like that. Then in the 90s, one of the best things ever happened. Spider-Man the animated series, and that cartoon is still, I feel like, it's the best Spider-Man incarnation like ever. It had really good storytelling and it had good web slinging, it had good animation, it was clean, you could always see what's going on when he was webbing around. He wasn't going super fast. And it was just like the coolest thing I ever experienced. Same thing with X-Men, the animated series, or Batman. Because when it comes to comic book movies, the only thing we had was Batman and Superman. And Batman and Robin just sucked. But you had other comic book movies like Steel, and those were never no good. And so nobody was making good comic book movies at that time. And, like I still remember, I never thought in a million years this was ever going to happen. Like, here I am, an adult. I'm at the movie theaters with my friends. We're watching Kill Bill, and they're talking about like the Spider-Man movie that came out, which I had not seen yet. And they're all like, "Oh man, you gotta watch that movie, man. Like, what are you waiting for?" and stuff like that. And so, like, what was I waiting for? Well, I don't really go see movies, so that's what I was waiting for. And I don't even remember how I saw it. I don't know if it was on TV. Heck, I probably just bought it on like DVD and just wished for the best. And I watched that first Spider-Man movie on DVD over and over and over again because my childhood hero came to life on the big screen. It didn't look exactly how I remember it. He didn't necessarily act like the Spider-Man I remember, but he was the closest thing I had. He talked in his head. He had problems in his real life and his superhero life that intervened with each other. Like he got the girl but couldn't necessarily keep her. He swung around, he was beating people up. He had the costume, and what an amazing costume that was. I didn't understand why the physical costume was like orange looking instead of red, and I didn't understand why it went into CGI, it was red, but I didn't care. I watched that movie. And I love that movie still to the day. And one of the reasons why I love that movie is because that is my favorite superhero. And he came out in live action. And I never thought in a million years I would ever see Spider-Man in live action. I never thought in a million years I would see Ninja Turtles in live action. Or oh yeah, of course Batman. But the X-Men. Like, that was just shocking. Like, to see them, like, Wolverine claws come out for the first time, or Iron Man wear like that suit that looked like metal, even though it was plastic, or better Captain America movie, or Fantastic Four, or Daredevil, or whatever. You know what I'm saying? It's like, it was like the biggest oh my god moment I had ever seen, because comic book stuff was always relegated to animation. And now they put on their big boy pants and their big girl pants, and they was in live action. You don't know unless you know how that feels. It is something to behold. It is something that is breathtaking. And these Hollywood elites want to take that away from us. And I say, F every single last one of them that wants to take it away from us with their old behinds, because of the simple fact that's what it is. You know, no disrespect truly to them, but they're not banging out movies like they used to. And that's their fault. Part of it is, yes, those business suit people that don't want to make this stuff, but they can still make it, and they still see this stuff on, like, in theaters and in television. But it's like, ain't nobody banging down their door. Because I've already said this about Jodie Foster. She was big in the 1970s, 80s, and 90s, producing movies every year or every 2 years. But once it got to the 2000s, people stopped banging down her door. And now there are huge gaps in her acting resume. We go like 3 to 4 years and stuff. Don't blame that on comic book movies. Blame that either on yourself or your fans or your agent or just Hollywood in general. But don't blame it on comic book movies, because comic book movies then take away your movie career. Alright, it just didn't. It's as simple as that. And before I end this video, I just want to say, in terms of comic books not changing a person's life, when Jodie Foster says, you know, comic book movies don't change her life. Well, you know what? They change other people's lives. Now, I've already told the story about the little girl at a convention talking about how Disney Gargoyles was her escapism, and how she was an outcast in school, and the Gargoyles were outcasts, and she saw herself through them. But one story I've never told is the Daredevil story. So, like, you remember Ben Affleck's Daredevil movie, and in the DVD there is a middle-aged man, and he is blind, and he was a consultant on the movie about how blind people operate and, you know, the things they do in their everyday lives to help make, you know, Matt Murdock seem like more realistic. Well, the man stated that growing up as a kid, Daredevil was his favorite superhero because Daredevil was blind just like him. And Daredevil got to do all this cool, amazing stuff. And he would see himself, like, you know, as like Daredevil. Then, what was it, about 30 something years later, he got to be a consultant on the movie. If that doesn't change a person's life, then heck, I don't know what does. Alrighty, well, I'll talk to y'all later. Bye.